Hi there, this is Catherine with Unfolded Harp Music. What I'd like to share with you today is just kind of a small handful of suggestions, tips about playing the lyre, primarily about position, how you're sitting, how you're holding your hands for two-handed playing. And I also have a new lyre which you can see, and so I'd like to point out a couple of different structural things that are different and make some difference in the sound, if that's something that you have some questions about. These are just really things that have kind of come together for me in the last couple of months, and there was enough that I thought, well, this might be really helpful for someone who is really trying to work on getting better at the lyre and has some questions about the lyre itself, but also about just how to play it on the very practical level of things. I'm not going to be, certainly not repeating things from my previous videos, and I also don't want to repeat things that are in other people's videos. That seems just not a very communal way of kind of operating. So if you have seen suggestions about two-handed playing and different things like that from other videos, I'd encourage you, go ahead and watch that. There's lots of people who have some pretty good stuff, one or two I think, who that's kind of a main thing that they do on their channels, and so I think they do a wonderful job, and I'd really encourage you to check them out if you're just starting with the lyre. But these are things that I haven't seen on other videos. Maybe they're there, but I haven't seen them, and that's why I want to share them with you. Okay, so the first thing, like I said, it's going to be about positioning, how you're sitting, holding your hands, and then at the end I'll talk a little bit about the two different kinds of lyres that I have at this point. So the first thing is just to talk about a difference in chairs. I have a little stool now. In my earliest videos, you can see I have this sort of fun orange chair that worked well because it was so low, and my knees were a little bit higher. You can't see my knees, but my knees were a little bit higher than my bottom was in that chair. And so that really helped to give me a certain kind of stability with my lyre, something that I really needed at that point, just to get comfortable with it with my hands. But you know, coming from a piano background and also just kind of some common sense, it wasn't just the best position to have my body in, and so I thought, well, I need to get a stool. I need to get something that is actually going to help me sit upright and develop a posture that's really going to be conducive to playing well. So that's my first thing, is make sure that you're sitting in something that's really going to hold you and is not going to make your body kind of go into a C-like position. That's really not a great idea. Certainly, again, if you're wanting to really get comfortable with this instrument, it's going to cause problems. The main thing that I noticed, two things. One is that I ended up turning my head and kind of leaning over a lot, and that causes a lot of strain in my neck and my shoulder. And I just knew, like, this is not this is not a very professional way of playing. It's not a very wise idea. So this movement was not very good. And also it ended up cramping, particularly my left arm. It ended up being kind of pulled back here and created tension as I continued to play in my left hand. So I thought, okay, I need to move on from this chair and do something a little bit different. So it's just a super cheap stool. It's a little bit higher than I would prefer, but it works just fine, and it was helpful for me to get something that wasn't exactly as I felt most comfortable, because it's aided me in a few other ways in being creative. So get a chair that's good, not bent over, not moving in this way, and not cramping your hands and your arms back. So with that, the main problem that I seem to have, and that maybe others have as well, is that the lyre slips on my leg a lot. And so I found myself wanting to hold it, let me turn a little bit, in between my legs, which just doesn't feel very natural, and also again made me need to lean over to see what those strings are. And I just thought, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so one thing that I started doing that proved to be quite helpful is just to take, this is just a very simple piece of shelf liner, and so it's got a little bit of grip to it, and I just place it just on my left thigh. And so now the lyre doesn't slip around. No matter what kind of clothing I have on, it doesn't move. So this is kind of an anchor point down here, and then also leaning the lyre up against kind of the bottom of my rib cage. And so having it rooted there is very helpful. I've got it a little bit to the left. This allows me to see the strings without having to bend over. I do make sure to have my legs kind of touching each other. Sometimes I naturally sit down with my legs a little bit farther apart, and I notice it's kind of wobbly and weird. So that's a small thing. So anchor point here as well. I do not lean the lyre back, because what that means is that I'm holding it with my left hand and I can't move it very much. It puts a lot of strain in my hand and in my wrist. When I do tend to do that, I notice very quickly I'll like want to pop my fingers a lot or pull my fingers or something like that, because it feels like these muscles are working in a way that they weren't really designed to. So make sure you're not supporting your lyre with your left hand in the sense of having 3 anchor points. You want to just have 2. This is my experience. You want to just have 2 so that that left hand is really free and you're able to use your whole arm and not just the muscles in your hands. That's going to create a lot of tension if you're playing longer than 15 minutes. Again, that's at least my experience. I like to, sometimes I like to sit down and play for an hour or 2 hours, something like that. And I want to be able to do that without this incredible strain, particularly on the left side. If I feel that usually means I'm either leaning over this way forward, or I'm trying to support the lyre with my left hand in a way that is that's really constraining it. So, so 2 points here, left hand free. A little bit of a kind of additional note to this lyre strap. I actually have it on my new one quite a bit looser than I did on my old one. I have found that allows me to have it a little bit lower on my wrist. I used to play with it right around the top of my wrist, but I have it a little bit lower now and a little bit looser. It still keeps the lyre more stable, but it doesn't put pressure on my arm in the way that I think it was actually doing, and I wasn't really aware of that before, and causing some strain. So a little bit looser, a little bit lower. The last thing I think that I had for this little part, 2 things. One is that I have found with my left hand, now I don't know if this is just a personal thing or if this is just how the arm is structured, but rather than, I'm going to turn so you can see, rather than having my left hand totally parallel, which I end up resting the lyre on my hand, on the almost the palm of my hand, I actually like to turn it a little bit more downwards towards the floor and play like this instead of coming up this way. And what I think that allows is I can feel the muscles all the way up into my shoulder being sort of activated, whereas they weren't as much before. It kind of stopped either in my hand or in my elbow. So if you're feeling, for me again, it's like I feel like, I don't know if you pop your fingers or try to pop your elbow or something, but you feel this kind of tension in your hand, at your wrist, or at your elbow. I think your hand probably needs more space to move, and so try and adjust it in such a way, make sure your elbow's not touching you, where your arm is actually free to be able to play the strings on your lyre using your whole arm. It's much easier with the right hand because you're not trying to hold the lyre with your right hand, but you are having to in a certain way with your left hand. So again, let me illustrate this with my right hand. Rather than having it straight up and down, I tend to turn it a little bit towards the ground, and that seems to prevent me from trying to support the lyre with kind of the bottom of my hand, and just puts it more right here on my thumb, such that this whole area of my hand is opened up and kind of can communicate to the rest of my arm. I don't know if that makes sense, but rather than here, I have it a little bit more right here, and that has seemed to help quite a bit. So that's with my hands and posture. A couple things that have really helped. I also try and make sure to sit up a lot more. I've already talked about leaning forward, but sometimes I can kind of slouch, especially after I've been playing for a while. And slouching will change my orientation towards the lyre. I'm much closer, first of all. And also my hands are more cramped. I can, it's not this severe, but sometimes if I'm playing like this, of course it's going to make me uncomfortable, and I need to be freed up more. So sitting up straight actually helps to support the lyre a lot more, and frees up my arms and my hands to really be able to play. So that's that just also makes sense for playing any instrument, to be sitting up straight, not in an awkward way, but in a way where you're supporting your body well rather than this kind of hunched over. Okay, the last thing for positioning, and this is just more of a, I don't know, kind of trick than anything else. The main thing that I find difficult about the lyre when I'm playing a piece, this is going to sound kind of silly, but is there's a lot of strings without a lot of reference points. And what I mean by that is compared to a harp where there's different colorative strings, or a piano where there's, black notes and white notes, all the strings, there's kind of two sections where all the strings are made of the same material and are the same color, and so it's very easy, particularly on a lyre that has more strings, this one has 19, to get kind of lost and to lose my reference point. And I think that's why I end up coming to the side more, is to try and see it a bit better. But one little thing that has been helpful is actually to position my light. I don't really use this, I use this light a little bit, but there's actually, you can see it in the reflection, there's a much brighter light to my right. And so when I have a light to my right, I can see the switch from the lower notes, the lower strings, to the higher strings. And they just, they glare differently. And so I can see my reference point a lot better. And I know that the first shinier one, is sort of just how I think about it, is on this one it's a G. On my old one it was an A. But on this one it's a G. And so that helps me if I know I'm playing in the key of C to go from there, or if I'm playing in the A minor or something, I know it's one up, things like that. So anyways, if that's something that you struggle with, if you try putting a light on the right hand side, and you can see where the change in materials is, and that gives you at least one reference point. But again, this is really only trouble if maybe you have a 16 or a 19 string. Lower than that's probably not quite as overwhelming. So that's that for you. Okay, so those are kind of a few things about positioning. Let me just double check I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, nope, I think I got everything. So hopefully that's of help to you. Again, sit in something good, not something squishy that's going to make you hunch over. Loosen this up, lower it down on your wrist, and sit up straight, free those arms up, and maybe turn your hands, especially left hand, a little bit more towards the ground. Oh, and then this nifty little shelf liner helps to kind of anchor at those two anchor points. So that's the position that I've kind of settled into, and I think will work well as I continue to grow, and not create bad habits and cramps and different things like that in my body. Okay, the second part of this, what I would like to do is, this is not specifically a lyre comparison, like this brand versus that brand, because I've only ever played now 2 lyres, and so I am absolutely not the right person to do that. And I just don't know enough about it to be able to speak all that clearly. But what I do want to do is point out a couple of differences between the different styles of lyres that I have. So let me bring up my old one, or my first one. Okay, so this one, many of you have asked, and I said this in another video, this is an Ashthorpe lyre. They don't make them anymore, but it wasn't a company that just specifically makes lyres. I mean, on the inside of this it says made in China, so it's not, a super high quality lyre by any means. This is not real wood. It's kind of a plasticky thing. It was less than $100. It was between $70 and $90, something like that. 16 string. And it has worked very well. So if you are not sure what kind of lyre you want to get, or how much you want to play it, I would not hesitate to say, just get one that is, between $60 and $100, and it should give you a good feel of what the lyre feels like. Okay, that's really all I can say, because this is the only one I've played. The things that I enjoyed about this were the number of strings, and also I do like probably more reverb than really sounds all that authentic. And this one, because it has it's built with the bridge and the box, it has a more acoustic sound than what I'm going to show you in a second. Now on my tutorial videos, I don't use any reverb, I don't touch anything because I'm talking. But when in my other videos where you're just hearing the piece, I do usually use the compressor to turn the volume up and then add a little bit of reverb to help it sound like it does in person and loud enough so that you can actually hear it without hearing all this white noise with it. So I'm not attempting to make it sound different than it sounds in real life, but it's not perfect. So it does sound a little bit different on the recordings than it does in real life. And again, that's just trying to get rid of the white noise and to work with the microphone that I have, which has its limitations. But this does have a much more echoey and acoustic sound, which let's see, the strings are different. So yeah, we've got A here. Okay. Okay, that's kind of a little sound test for you. The microphone is probably 1.5 feet from me. It's pretty loud for a lyre, which is not very loud, but it's louder than what I'm going to show you in a moment. Like I said, it has quite a bit of reverb. The downsides to this one is because it's a cheaper one. The pegs, they stayed well at first, but as I continued to work with it and work with it a lot, I definitely noticed that in my, in a single sit time and one practice time, whether it's 30 minutes, an hour, or something like that, it did often go out of tune, and that's just annoying. And certainly if I was playing for friends or something like that, to have to adjust it, not because I'm going into a different key, but because it's just out of tune, it's just not a super professional instrument in that regard. And I didn't expect that, but that's just something that I did want to fix. So the peg's not staying is one thing. The reverb, it's nice in the sense of it has a warm sound to it, but what it seems to kind of be is there's so much reverb to it that the sound of the actual string doesn't come through as cleanly. Because this was the only lyre that I had ever played, I just sort of went with it. And again, that's really what I would encourage anyone, if you already have a lyre, and you're not trying to play super professionally, or you're just sort of playing for your own enjoyment, something like that, I would just really work with what you've got. And primarily what I'm talking about is how hard you're pulling the strings, real soft or real hard, or somewhere in the middle, which is where I'd recommend. Oops. And just work with that. It's going to be different for different instruments, just different particular lyres. So with the bridge and the thicker sound box, it's going to have that stronger reverb, which does muddy it. That's the word I was looking for earlier. It does muddy the sound a little bit. There's warmth to it, but it does kind of muddy it. The other thing that I didn't quite like about this one is that I did feel a little cramped with my hands in here. The open space is not as big as on my new one. And I wanted to, and so I did find myself avoiding some of these lower notes, this lower G and A. And certainly I couldn't get to anything higher with the left hand. I don't know if I ever will need to do that, but it did limit what I played, because it's very awkward to reach in between these and get a nice clean sound. So that was kind of a small thing. But mostly I just knew that this was not made of the best materials. The strings are pretty touchy. But with all that said, I'm not just trying to point out the negatives, just it was very good and has been very good for the purposes of what I have been doing. And so I would absolutely recommend this this sort of level of instrument for someone who's just getting started and is not quite sure how you want to go, what you want to do with it, how far you want to go with it. But of course, like any instrument, this is definitely a beginner materials, beginner type of instrument. But it works very great and has worked very great for me in many ways. Okay, so let me switch to the new one that I have. And the first thing I want to show you is structurally, this one operates a little bit differently. So you will notice, oh, my microphone is casting a shadow. Okay, there's no bridge. So this is structured loosely, more like a harp. And all I mean by that is that the strings go directly into the wood, rather than going over a bridge. And so it has less of an acoustic sound and more of a softer harp sound. So let me play a little bit on this. My reference points are a little bit different because it's strung slightly differently. So let's see. I was in C before. There we go. Okay. Let me do a little bit lower as well and get a little bit more full sound on my A. Excuse me. Okay, so you get a sense of the sound difference. And I mean, it's tough with a microphone because you can't hear the difference between the microphone and the microphone sound and the real life. But it's a decent microphone, so it's going to be fairly accurate. So part of it, so what I want to point out is there's two different styles of what are named as lyres. This is my theory. My theory is that the first one is officially more of a lyre. This one is more of a lyre harp. I don't know if that's right, but it would make sense to me because this is definitely more of a mix in regards to build between a lyre and a harp, but I don't know. Someone can tell me if they know. And so this has a much, much cleaner sound. And so if I ever want to add anything to it, reverb, etc., I can do that. I've got a nice clean slate. I'd rather not. But it just has a much, much cleaner sound. When I go from the lower to the higher notes, everything is the same. So it's got a really, really nice sound to it. With the other one, which is going to happen with less expensive instruments, there were some strings that were a little bit more touchy. The higher ones could sound very pingy. If I hit it wrong, it would really kind of ring out. And the lower ones just kind of sounded muddy, but had a different tone to it. This one, they all have the same tone, which is really, really nice. I would avoid transgressing between the high and the low on the old one because the sound felt quite different. So again, and that's just part of me working with what I had, and it worked very well. But I don't have to have those limitations with this one, which is a plus. Price-wise, I'm sorry I didn't mention this. Price-wise, this one was in the 300s, about 350, and so it's a big difference in regards to pricing. But it was made by Luthier, and so it was made by someone in the United States who makes these made by hand with I think this is American cherry wood. I'm pretty sure it's cherry wood. It is cherry wood. I'm pretty sure it's American cherry wood, but from like Pennsylvania or something. So this is real wood, higher quality strings, and the pegs do not move. It definitely stays in tune. Once the strings were broken in, it has stayed, which is, again, a really nice, convenient thing. And it has a very, very nice sound to it. This one is 19 strings, which is really nice. It sounds like just a little bit in regards to it just being 3 more strings than the 16, but I've been kind of surprised in regards to how much more I feel like I can play on it, because I can do 2 octaves in 3 more keys, more than that, but at least 3 more keys, and so that opens up a lot more, which I'm really grateful for. The last thing about this particular brand, or this particular build, I should say, is that he created it such that there's a really wide opening in the back. And so to be able to get these lower strings, sorry, I don't think I tuned that F. Yeah, sorry, that sounds awful. But they're really, really easy to get to. Excuse me, very, very easy to get to. And I know from some of the comments that he has made on his work that he did that in order for two-handed playing to be more accessible. So if that's something that's important to you, you can look for that. I'm not saying this specific lyre, from this specific person or shop, but I am saying that back opening is something to look for. And then again, if it goes straight into the lyre, it's probably going to have a more just a less acoustic sound, but a much cleaner sound. The other thing about this one, okay, 2 more things, and then I think that's everything. Because it has a lot less reverb, maybe not, but less reverb, I can do a lot more dynamics with it. With the other one, I tended to play very softly because when I played louder, it either sounded very pingy or it sounded like too much, like it muffled. It just kind of sounded like this, where there was too much sound going in. Like if you're playing the piano and you're just holding down the pedal the entire time and the dampers are never coming back down. You need to dampen it some. And I mean, you can do that with your hand. And maybe I should have tried to do that. But I didn't do that, and so that was something that it kind of would build up, so I didn't play very loudly. This one, when I first got it, I played it very softly, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is so soft. But I didn't realize that in order to get the volume that I wanted, I just needed to pull the strings a lot harder. So rather than playing like, I can play. And even on the high notes, and what's so nice about this one, and this is just something with a higher quality instrument, is that no matter the volume, the tone doesn't change. And so I don't get all this reverb, and I also just get a nice clean sound. It's just one's louder and one's quieter. And so I can be much more dynamic with my dynamics. So that's very, very nice. But it was a little bit of an adjustment for me to recognize, oh my goodness, I need to pull much harder on these strings than I was used to. So that was just a little bit of a muscle memory adjustment. So if you do switch from one to the other style, meaning bridge or no bridge, just know that it's going to feel different, and don't be too startled by that. It's going to have a different feel to it. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, if you have any questions about it, this is I hope I get the name right, a Brandon John Luthier. He's on Etsy. I say that not to necessarily promote him or anything like that. Again, this is the only one of this quality or this style that I've ever even played. So please don't take this as me promoting this particular make. Just, I know a lot of people ask me what kind of lyre I have. And so this is I know that's right, Brandon John Luthier from Etsy. I don't know international shipping and stuff with him. But anyways, he was very helpful in just kind of understanding a few practicals about it. And yeah, so okay, so style, just know that it's a different way of making the lyre, and it's going to have a different sound, going to have a different feel. So if you want something more acoustic, then I would get one that has a bridge to it, but no, it may be more muffled, and you may be able to, if you want to do more strumming work, if you like the guitar sound a little bit more, that might be a better way for you to go. But if you like the more harp sound, and not any strumming, but just more like the music that I write, then this style may be a little bit better suited. It's got that cleaner sound that you can work with and really kind of grow with a little bit more. So anyways, I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but I will let you know if that comes back to me. But I hope this is helpful for you. I get a lot of questions about the lyre. I don't have a ton of knowledge about it, but I'm sharing with you what I know, and not what I don't know. So if you have any additional things that you think would be helpful for others, you're welcome to put that in the comments. I'm sure people would appreciate that. There's, I mean, together we know a lot more than certainly I do by myself. And there's other people who've done comparisons and such like that. So mostly I wanted to point out the different styles and the what that's going to do, just because it's built differently, so it's going to have different strengths and different weaknesses to it. So anyways, hope it's helpful. And anyways, as always, let me know if you have any questions or comments via comments in the description. I'm sorry, the under the description in the video, or via email. Good luck with everything, and hopefully this is a help and an aid to you. Thank you so much. God bless.